Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you, as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Blake Lovell, who does such great work over at Southeastern 16. Lots of intrigue coming up with the SEC tournament in a few days. We're going to chat with him about that. We're going to talk about the fact that seemingly every single bubble team on the face of planet Earth lost over the weekend. So we're going to have some good, clean family fun looking at that. A few teams that he's feeling bullish/bearish on going into both the SEC tournament, just overall into the NCAA tournament as well. So we've got a lot to chat about with him in the final segment. Gonna get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some bank shots. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we did have ourselves a fun day of college basketball on Sunday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
While they did not cover, Memphis won their first game since the Super Bowl. I'm not even kidding when I say that. They were able to take down Tulane in overtime after they upchucked a 9-point lead with about 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. 96-95 the final, as it's been a rough one for Tulane as well. It went 9-26 from three-point range. For Memphis, they go 7-19 from three. They win the rebound battle 41-32. And Memphis, they do lose the turnover battle 13-8, but they were able to get a pretty nice performance in this one off the bench out of Thurino Sayala. He was able to throw in there 17 points, 3 blocks. So yay verily for Memphis. We had a few ranked teams in action on Sunday, and for Michigan, they get the win, but they do not get the cover in a lot of places against Michigan State. This opened up more around about 11.5. Some places close this 9.5. Some places closer to 10.5. So 90-80 the final. It is a Michigan State team that has been quite solid to the under this far this season. This is a game that goes over the total. And for Michigan State, now 15-14-2 against the spread this far this season. As for Michigan State, they were able to do a nice job in terms of being able to get things going from the inside, as they only go 6 of 18 from three-point range, but they were able to go 16-20 at the free throw line for Michigan. They really win this game at the charity stripe. 26 out of 29 at the free throw line and 10-22 from three-point range. Yaxel Lendeborg, he led the way with 27 points, goes 8-12 from the floor. Morris Johnson was able to throw in there 7 rebounds, and Jeremy Fears, he had one strange situation where he appeared to try to kick a guy in the area, so that was not great to say the least, but did have 22 points, 9 assists, and for Michigan State, they do win the turnover battle 10-7, and then for Nebraska, they cover this game in overtime against Iowa, 84-75 the final. These have been two teams that have been very rock solid against the spread this season for Nebraska. Now 17-13-1 against the spread. Iowa, with this one, they do fall a little bit more. They're now at 18-13 against the spread, and Iowa's actually been quite an interesting totals team as well. Nebraska has been really good to the under. This game just gets toasted in overtime, but Iowa 17 overs, 14 unders for Nebraska with this under, 10 overs to 21 unders, and for Michigan State, getting back to them with regards to totals as well. Michigan State now 14 overs to 17 unders, a tie ball around the Big Ten trends, but that said, for Nebraska, they were able to persevere in this game because they did a nice job in terms of hitting their threes. 10-27 from the outside. You had Sam Hoiberg and Cale Jacobson both throwing their 14 points apiece, and they won the turnover battle 19-12. Typically, that's Iowa's job, and Iowa did have Bennett Sturz go for just 11 points in this game. Cooper Koch, along with Khalil Combs, were both able to give you 18 points apiece, but also 10-15 at the free throw line for an Iowa team that actually won the rebound battle in this game, 32-29. So that was an interesting one. And then Illinois, they get the win, but they do not get the cover against Maryland, 78-72 the final. So yay, verily, for a cover for a Maryland team that has been now 17 overs, 14 unders, and against the spread, it's been, well, not great for Maryland, 14-17 against the spread, but they were able to get a cover in this game. So yay, verily for them. As for Illinois, it took them a little bit of time to get going in this one, up by just 3 at the half. They go 5 of 24 from 3, but won the rebound battle 33-30. They do win the turnover battle as well, 8-7 for Andre Mills. He stepped up and he looked like Andre 3000 in this game with 30 points. And for Illinois, Davi Mirkovic was able to come in there, give you 22 points. So was able to do a rock solid job on that front. You had some big punch to the NCAA tournament as well, and a lot of heartbreak for the 1 seeds in these conference tournaments. Campbell, they take down the 1 seed in UNC Wilmington 85-70, as Wilmington, it looks like they're NIT bound as they went 2 of 18 from 3-point range in this game, 41-37. They win the rebound battle, but man, you just can't shoot that way from 3-point range with your season on the line, and it's unfortunate because it's been a Wilmington team that has been solid against the spread, 15-13-2, and they had 25 straight up wins during the regular season, but they will not be going to the NCAA tournament. Who will be going to the NCAA tournament? Queens NC. This is by one of the most historic performances that you're going to see in a loss, as Cameron Hunter for Central Arkansas tried to put the team on his back. 49 points, 8 of 12 from 3-point range, 5 turnovers, but 4 steals, but team falls short 98-93. Queens NC wins this game in overtime. Central Arkansas unable to cover, but they've been honestly a really good cover team. Hopefully we see them in the NIT or something like that. 19-10-3 against the spread for Central Arkansas this season, who did go 15 of 36 from 3. Queens went 16 out of 38 from the outside, so pair of flamethrowers going at it in this game. For Lehigh, they take down Colgate 76-69, and they'll take on Boston U, who took out the 1 seed in their tournament, as Navy 73-72 losers against Boston U, who was able to hit a buzzer beater. I know that a lot of people were saying the clock didn't start. The dude for Boston U took that thing with over a second remaining. Even if the clock was running, that was going to count, so I will say that, and I say that as someone that was on Navy in the game, and Navy 20-10-1 against the spread this far this season, and Boston U now 18-13 against the spread. In Boston U, they play super duper slow, they play no defense, but they've been great from 3-point range. They are now up to 18 overs and 13 unders this far this season, and Boston U went 11 of 24 from 3-point range in this game. Chance Clayton into it, the buzzer beater, 26 points, and for Navy, you did have Aiden KOA be able to chip in there 26 points, 12 rebounds, but the team, even though they won the turner battle 13-4, they just couldn't match the Boston U 3-point shooting, as they went 2 of 13 from 3-point range in this one. You saw Northern Iowa puncher dick it to the dance, 84-69. They're able to take down the Illinois Chicago Flames, and it's been a very interesting Northern Iowa team, one that has been playing at one of the slowest paces in all of college basketball, and hey, 20-14 against the spread. Recognize that they were the 5 seed, but I mean, they've been a solid team. They go 12 of 23 from 3-point range. Trey Campbell, he had 23 points in this game, and then for UIC, Elijah Crawford, 28 points for UIC. They did go 9-9 at the free throw line, but they also lost the rebound battle 26-22, so a little bit less than savory out there. Also, this was less than savory if you were taking a look at some more of the 1 seeds, as well as East Tennessee State was life and death against Western Carolina. Western Carolina, they don't end up pulling through. ETSU just barely ekes this one out, 69-67 the final. They got down 14 points at the half, as much as 17 overall in the game, but they go 8 of 23 from 3. Brian Taylor put the team on his back, 22 points, and for Western Carolina, they lost this game with the turnovers. 14 turnovers for them, ETSU 11, so they stave off elimination out there. You've got a High Point, they're not going to be a low point, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. They take down Winthrop 91-76 the final. It's Winthrop just 8 of 33 from 3, 18 out of 31 at the free throw line, and High Point did the little things well. They won the turnover battle 13-9. They went 27 out of 32 at the free throw line. Hot Rob Martin was able to throw in their 24 points. Cameron Fletcher off the bench, 17 points and 19 rebounds. When have you ever seen 17 plus points, 17 plus rebounds off the bench? I don't know, but hey, he was able to do his part, so they end up persevering. They get the job done out there. If you're looking at the toilet bowl in the Big Ten, by the way, Rutgers, they got to win and cover 74-62 against Penn State, so yay verily to them. Drexel has been a pretty solid under team thus far this season. I don't think that they're going to be making a postseason tournament, as Monmouth, they were able to get the job done by a count of 65-57, so they're on to the next round in the CAA tournament, as 17 unders, 14 overs, and a push for Drexel this season. And Monmouth has been an interesting team as well, with the way that they've been able to get back actually one of their key scorers here late in the season, as they were dealing with an injury to Kavion McLean throughout the season. He's been able to step up, be a starter for the team, and for Drexel, just ugly in this game. They lose the turnover battle 15-14. They go 8 of 12 at the free throw line, so less than tremendous for them. What else is less than tremendous is the fact that you're probably not going to be betting any more UW Green Bay this season, as Northern Kentucky went the first about 7.5 to 8 minutes in this game scoreless against UW Green Bay. They went 0 of 14 to start the game, and they still put up 96 points, 96-76. Northern Kentucky gets the job done. It's a Green Bay team that finishes up the season actually 19-12 against the spread, but no defense after the first about 7 or so minutes in this game. As Northern Kentucky, they started 0 of 9 from 3. They finished 14 of 28 from the outside. You had 26 points out of LJ Wells, who threw in there 9 rebounds for Green Bay. They lose a turnover battle 9-4. They lose a rebound battle 37-25. So Northern Kentucky, they do a nice job in terms of surviving and advancing themselves. And you also saw South Florida, who's really been coming on strong here in the back half of the season, absolutely take it to Charlotte, 83-60 the final. South Florida has been a little bit of an up and down team against the spread this far this season, but now up to 16-14 in terms of being able to cover those numbers. They were able to get a nice performance in this game with 20 points, 7 boards, 6 assists out of Wes Enos, who's really been able to step up for this team. So that was rock solid. And hey, one of your worst against the spread teams, the Meep Roadrunners of UTSA, they lose but they cover against Rice, 80-71 the final. They're now 10-18 against the spread. I believe we will be seeing them in the American tournament. I don't think that they have any cuts. If they do, well, they got cut because they were 1-17 in the conference this year. But hey, for Rice, just 12 of 46 from 3-point range, and that was good enough for UTSA to hold in there. As for UTSA, they actually lose the turnover battle 5-4. You had a lot of clean possessions in this game, just a big giant bricklaying fest, as this was a closing total that was right around about 151 half. If you had the under, you barely got there, even though you had like 5 billion shots taken in this game. So a little bit of good, clean family fun out there. And then in the Metro Atlantic tournament, Marist has been an interesting team all season. Merrimack, they do get the win. They do not get the cover. 58-57 the final. A Merrimack team that's, by the way, 19-13-1 against the spread. And for Merrimack, they find a way, because you had on your team Mr. Dorsett, Ty Dorsett, 23 points, 6 rebounds. Merrimack wins the turnover battle 20-9. They get lambasted on glass 38-26, and Merrimack just 37% from the floor. But Marist, with those 20 turnovers, that costs them a spot in terms of being able to get into the Metro Atlantic final and being able to get to the NCAA tournament. So a little bit unfortunate out there. And if you did lay the 9.5 to 10 points, a little bit unfortunate that North Dakota State unable to get the cover, but they do punch your ticket to the dance. North Dakota State, they take down North Dakota by a count of 70-62. Really had full control of this game throughout. As for North Dakota State, they were able to do a nice job in terms of winning the rebound battle by a count of 41-33. Did go 10-19 at the free throw line. Again, if you didn't get the cover in this game, and I was one of the people I bet on North Dakota State, that's the reason why. But Damari Wheeler-Thomas, he gives you 19 points, goes 2 of 4 from 3. Overall, North Dakota State, they go 10 of 23 from 3. For North Dakota, just 8 of 26 from the outside. Grayson Yeoman had a really nice tournament, 24 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, also had 4 turnovers, but North Dakota actually won the turnover battle 11-8 in that one as well. Do I have to do this before I knew the final of Santa Clara versus Pacific? But that said, I can be specific on the fact that Idaho was able to rally from down 9 points against Montana State, 78-74 final in this game. And how about Georgia Southern and what they continue to do? Spud Webb at 31 points. They have now won 5 games in 5 days, 82-78 the final. They have a chance to play 37 games before the NCAA tournament. I'm pretty sure that would be a record. As for Marshall, they go 10 of 26 from 3, but Georgia Southern wins the rebound battle 43-35. They win the turnover battle 14-12, and they were able to get a big performance out of Webb, going 13 of 14 at the free throw line. So that's just a lot of good, clean family fun. And then out there in the Metro Atlantic, Siena, they were one of the favorites that actually took care of business on Sunday. As for Siena, they do find a way to persevere, get the job done against Fairfield. This by a count of 76-61. A Metro Atlantic conference has been just full of unders. Every single team in the Metro Atlantic has played more unders than overs. This closing total is 137.5. So got there on yet another under, even though you had some good three-point shooting from Siena. They go 9 of 17 from three-point range. Justice Schultz led the way with 26 points. For Fairfield, they lose a rebound battle by a count of 41-34. Did win the turnover battle 10-5, but not enough in this game, as Siena's able to run and hide with this one. And then you did see as well, this was a very interesting game with Nicholls being able to get the job done. They absolutely hold it down on defense against Northwestern State, 61-47 the final, as they've been a good team in terms of generating turnovers all season long. They win the turnover battle 14-12. Go just 5 of 19 from 3 points, but Northwestern State 7 of 23 from 3-point range, and then they went 7 of 26 on their 2-point shots. Just absolutely destroyed there. And if you're looking at what we're all getting trend-wise in college basketball right now. Keep in mind, this is still with that Santa Clara game pending, so you've got one or two results that aren't going to be showing in this, but it's been a lot of overs here over the last 7 days. 161 overs to 147 unders. That's a 52.3% hit rate. Underdogs continue to cash. 159 and 149 against the spread. That's 51.6%, and overall this season, the underdogs are hitting at 51.4%. 2,806, 2,655 against the spread, with the over rate being just 49.4%. 2,699 overs, 2,763 unders. So that's where we're seeing college basketball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16 right here on Coast to Coast with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beats Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. Hello back in lovely Las Vegas for Coach Discussions with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And it's always great to be joined by this man as we got Blake Lovell aboard, who does such an amazing job over at Southeastern 16, looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. I know that he's been doing amazing work all season long, not just looking at the SEC, but also looking at a lot of these other teams as well that the SEC face off. We had the SEC ACC Challenge, so he's been doing a great job keeping an eye on that conference. You may recall, you joined me for a lot of my mid-major conference previews as well, and I believe that he was talking the praises of Tennessee State coming into the season as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at the Blake Lovell. Last name is spelled Lovell. And Blake, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks always for having me, Greg.
It's always great to get you aboard, Blake. And Blake, it is an exciting time of year. Now we've got the SEC tournament set. And how do you take a look at this tournament? Because the obvious favorite here is Florida, but I feel like outside of Florida being the favorite, there's just mass exodus chaos with the rest of this board.
Yeah, that's kind of been the story of the SEC this season, is how this whole thing is played out with the teams really in the middle. I think those teams at the top like Alabama and Arkansas, they eventually, I think, separate themselves a little bit from the others that were behind them. But, when you look at the teams like Vanderbilt and Tennessee and A&M and Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, like Texas, like you just keep going down the line, those are all teams that I think in the right scenario, can pull off a couple upsets in an NCAA tournament, in an SEC tournament. But at the same time, you see one bad matchup and they lose the first game. And I think that's just kind of where we are with this group of SEC teams. Very boom or bust, I think, this season. And, that should make for a pretty interesting tournament outside of just the dominant storyline of Florida just being as good as they've been. I think the rest is going to kind of be, is this thing really going to hold according to the seeding form? I think I'd be pretty surprised just based on how up and down a lot of these other teams have been at times.
Yep, no question about it. I do think that it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with regards to these mid-tier teams. And just how do you take a look at the teams outside of Florida right now? Because obviously they're the team that's crescendoing. They've been able to get the job done time and time again. And I think it's fair to say we've seen a few teams wane. I'm looking at the entire state of Mississippi right now. But the mid-tier teams I think are so interesting, like Alabama, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, the teams that we talked about in terms of having a little bit of boom or bust potential throughout the year. And those are the teams I really have my eye on going into this tournament.
Yeah, I think so too. And just for Vanderbilt, by virtue of getting double bye and being the 4 seed, I think puts them in a pretty good spot in terms of, this is a team that just got Duke Miles back several games ago. They just, picked up a nice road win at Tennessee. I know the Vols were without Nate Ament, but still, that's back-to-back close road wins. for Vanderbilt, which I think is important this time of year to kind of go in with that confidence, feeling like you can win away from home. So I think, you kind of have them gaining some momentum here, and now you've pretty much got your full allotment of players now, since Frankie Collins won't be back. We talked about him a lot this season, but that's not going to happen. With Duke Miles back, I think you got close to the team as you could have that started 16-0. And so maybe we see what they're able to do kind of in the right matchup, and that's where you're probably staring down either a game with Tennessee or Auburn, which, again, I think Vanderbilt would match up quite well with either based on what we've seen this season. So, yeah, I think I look at them specifically and just try to figure out, can they navigate their way to the semifinals on Saturday? Because remember, if they do get Florida, that was a 4-point game between those two teams, and I think that's something to really think about, when you kind of look at the potential. It seems like Florida's a bad matchup for a team like Vanderbilt, but maybe not, because, again, you kind of just see the way that they can play offensively and some of the things they can do defensively. So that's probably the team I would have my eye on most. But then, of course, Greg, it becomes a conversation of all these teams that are still technically on the bubble in the SEC, whether it is, a Missouri, someone like Auburn, Texas, even Oklahoma, somehow, some way, I think would not be a surprise if they were to win a couple games in this tournament to be right there with a shot. That obviously is where we start to get into those teams of, can you really trust them? And I don't know. It just depends on the matchup.
Yep, absolutely. I do think that it's going to be very matchup dependent. And with regards to all these teams out there in the SEC, I think that they all do have sort of their strengths and weaknesses right now, as Blake Lovell, who does such great work over at Southeastern 16, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And beyond the SEC tournament, how do you take a look at these teams outside of Florida in terms of the national landscape? And which ones do you think have the attributes to be able to make a little bit of a deeper run? Because I do think that it is interesting to take a look at, because you have a team like Alabama that they have so much boom or bust potential with the way that they pop it from three-point range. Tennessee obviously plays a great defense, but they can go into a lot of scoring ruts as well. And then you have a team like Texas that I think is just so interesting in the way that they do such a good job on the glass, but I still would argue that they need more out of Trayvon Mark.
Yeah, and I think that's where, when you're looking at, even if you want to just take it to those three teams, Texas is just way too unpredictable. And I know they still have a top 10 offensive team, but we've said before, a lot of that's one-on-one. Can you get to the free throw line type stuff? And I think in an NCAA tournament setting, that's really dependent on how a game's called and all that kind of stuff. Like, that can really factor in. And they're just not a good defensive team. I mean, let's call it what it is. They don't force turnovers. Teams shoot it prolific, just 3-point percentage, 36, 37% against them right now from three. That's not going to get it done. And, they're also not a great 3-point shooting team themselves. So they kind of have to play the game a certain way, I feel like, to have a great chance to win. And so that kind of limits their upside. But at the same time, if they're a 10 seed, could you see them beating a 7? Could you see them matching up well and playing a UConn as a 2? Sure. Like, I could see Texas having a path to the Sweet 16 or something like that. There's no question. But then, we talk about like the Alabama versus Tennessee debate. And my answer to that one is, we've seen it. And that is meaning we've seen Alabama, who was very boom or bust a couple years ago, be able to boom their way to the Final Four. With Tennessee, it's been the same story, and we've not seen them be able to break through and get there. Yes, they've gotten to the Elite Eight, but can they break through? I think with a team like this that is not as good defensively and is probably worse offensively than the two teams they've had the past 2 years that did get to the Elite Eight. So I can't say I have a lot of trust in Tennessee necessarily. Of course, a lot of that's going to be dependent on Nate Ament. Is he ready to go for the NCAA tournament? If he is, then that helps them offensively, and they're the best offensive rebounding team in the country. But I just think they have too many of those droughts, and we've just seen too many times in the past that is what's going to eventually cost them in the wrong matchup. But I think Alabama, to me, still has the highest ceiling outside of Florida. But Arkansas is probably going to be in that mix too, just because they have Darius Acuff. They don't turn the ball over, and they're just so efficient offensively, but they also have their own defensive issues at times. It's funny because it's not always the case when you just look at the standings and you're kind of like, okay, those are easily the teams that you're going to look at, as the highest. But I honestly think the way it's shaped out, Florida's the dominant team. And then I think it's pretty clear that Alabama and Arkansas are the teams that have the next highest ceiling, just based on kind of the makeup of the roster right now.
Yep, and it might have been Vanderbilt, but the whole Frankie Collins situation, that's been very costly for them. So they go into the NCAA tournament a little bit wounded on that front, as Blake Lovell, who does such great work over at Southeastern 16, is joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And it's a yearly tradition in the SEC. There's always a few teams out there on the bubble that are going in? And how do you take a look at the bubble teams in the SEC? Because all the hubbub right now is around Auburn, because Bruce Pearl is trying to be the hype man for Auburn, and it's really not going well right now. It might actually be doing more harm than good. Obviously, Missouri's been a team that's been popping up. Golden opportunity against Arkansas. They don't quite get the job done there. And then there are a few other teams that may be on the bubble, but it's looking like the SEC should probably be getting in at least 10 teams. But how do you take a look at more of those teams that we'll call them 8, 9, or below in terms of the NCAA tournament picture?
Yeah, and I think that's where a team like Georgia's done themselves a lot of favors. And I think, just quickly, that's where if Georgia were to make it up to a 7 seed, and they had UConn as the 2, that's a game to watch out for just because of the way Georgia can score the ball. And that's one I would certainly have my eye on potentially if you're looking at possible upsets. But if you're looking at the bubble teams, my goodness, I think A&M's in. I feel like after winning the game, they finished 11-7. They have a lot of wins away from home. I think that's going to be what gets A&M in. I don't want to say comfortably, but I really don't see a scenario now where A&M's anywhere close to Dayton. I think they're probably a 10 seed. Maybe they sneak up to a 9 if they win a couple games in the SEC tournament. That's possible, but I think they're probably locked in as a 10, and I don't see any scenario where they're going to fall out now. Missouri, Texas, and Auburn. Those are the 3 teams that I think right now you're kind of circling as if what can happen here. I don't really know if enough can happen to keep Missouri out at this point either. Maybe in the scenario that Missouri were to play an LSU instead of Kentucky in the second round of the SEC tournament and lose to LSU, then maybe that pushes them a little further back to where they're in Dayton. But honestly, I think that's worst case scenario for Missouri right now, because why? The bubble, Jeff Borzello put out the tweet of Joe Lunardi's bracket. I think it was like 12 teams in his, final 12 team in range and whatever those categories are. 9 teams played and all 9 of them lost. So if you're an SEC bubble team, like one of these teams, yeah, Missouri lost yesterday, Texas lost yesterday, Auburn lost yesterday. But my goodness, Greg, it's like they got to field the 68-team tournament. I said Auburn had 0% chance of making the NCAA tournament if they lost at Alabama. Guess what? That number is no longer 0. It's higher than 0 because all the teams around them are not doing themselves any favors to try to push ahead of an Auburn, who, yes, is 16-15 and 7-11 in the SEC. But when you look at their resume, they have a lot of points that are stronger still than some of these teams they're being compared to, like these really average ACC teams, or some of these teams, like a Seton Hall or teams like that just don't even have close, I think, to a resume that can compare. Listen, I don't think Auburn necessarily should be in the tournament. And I'm an SEC guy, right? I mean, I cover the SEC, but I think now we're in a situation where if you're going to, let's say, go into this and we don't see a lot of bid stealers, which I think is asking a lot because we know some of them are going to happen, then I think there is still a chance that you're going to see maybe all of these SEC teams have a chance to get in. 2 of them could be in Dayton. Who knows? But I think there's still a shot, and it's only because the other teams on the bubble are not helping themselves out while these SEC teams are losing games. And so it's all going to come down to, I think, again, what kind of matchups you get in the SEC tournament. And Auburn, of course, has to win against Mississippi State. That's a no-brainer. But if they do that and no one else can help themselves enough, then maybe they find a way into this thing. And I would have never guessed that, or probably even thought that was even a possible logical step. But that's what happened, and having all those teams lose in the final regular season Saturday.
We might have a 16-loss team become an at-large team in the NCAA tournament. And right now we're discussing whether or not the team with 0 losses deserves to be in the NCAA tournament as well. Right. And I do have to ask you about that as well, because you just mentioned it. I mean, all these teams on the bubble are right now up-chucking all over themselves. Every team has a golden opportunity. You couldn't ask for anything more if you're Indiana, if you're Missouri, if you're Auburn. I mean, insert your favorite power conference team that's on the bubble, and every one of them has said, no thanks, I'm watching my figure. While you've got a Miami of Ohio team that's done nothing but win. Have you ever experienced something more ridiculous than this? Because why are we trying to make favors for these 13-loss teams that just continue to lose down the stretch, while a Miami of Ohio team that maybe isn't winning by margin, they continue to do what nobody else is doing, put a W on the board? Yeah,
there should be no debate. If Miami, Ohio loses that conference tournament, I don't care where they lose. I don't care against who and by how many. It doesn't matter. There should be no debate that they should be in over Auburn or any of these other teams that are hovering in that same area. Like I said, you look at some of these teams, I'm not picking on the ACC or the Big East here, But you look at the resumes of some of those teams. I mean, SMU, what have they done recently? Like nothing that has helped themselves. Cal, Stanford, like all these teams, Virginia Tech, they just are not doing enough.
Cincinnati lost Eastern Michigan on their home floor.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. And so, like, when I see like Seton Hall around the bubble and all this, like, I got nothing against these teams. But when you go in and look at their resumes, like, that's the thing is like, I want to sit here and not sound like I'm like supporting Auburn because, again, I said they shouldn't be in if they lose to Alabama. But now you have to field a tournament of 68 teams, which let's not forget, we're trying to push this thing out even further to more teams. That's great. Let's get all these teams that went 0-9 on Saturday. Let's say that this time 3 years from now, Greg, if we had the exact same scenario, all of those teams could lose on Saturday and comfortably get into the NCAA tournament. That'd be great for the sport, right? I think at this point, Miami should be in. And you know what? Another wild card scenario that I wouldn't mind seeing, it's not going to help SEC. It's not going to help the ACC, Big East, all these bubble teams. But I wouldn't mind seeing the A-10 all of a sudden turn into a 3-bid league where let's say someone other than St. Louis or VCU wins that tournament. Then I think at that point, you've got no choice but to probably put 3 teams in the field. Based on what St. Louis has done, I think VCU, I mean, they're kind of one of the few in this range that's helping themselves right now. When you look at the way they finished the season, only 1 loss since January the 14th, and that was at St. Louis. I think this is one where we don't count like last 10 the way we used to. The committee doesn't look at that. But we're kidding ourselves if we don't think they're adding some of this recency in when you're factoring in fielding a tournament now. We're not fielding it in January or February. How are teams playing now? That should matter. A lot of these bubble teams, I just don't think are doing anything impressive. Put Miami in, put a third A-10 team if you have to. You just want the best tournament with the teams that are playing the best right now. We shouldn't be rewarding teams that just keep losing and not doing themselves any favors here.
Yep, everyone's just like, oh, they haven't had any quad 1, quad 2 wins. Is it much better to go 2-11? Like, I mean, You got 13 opportunities and you succeeded twice. Let's give the benefit of the doubt to the team that hasn't lost any of those games. So I'm right there with you. Just absolutely ridiculous. And when you do take a look at the national landscape, we just talked about the teams outside the SEC on the bubble that maybe we're not feeling, and I'm right there with you on all of them. But is there a team or two outside the SEC that has your attention? You want to see how they're doing their conference tournament because maybe they're not going to make like some sort of a wild Final Four or title run or something like that, but you just love the way that they're pplaying right now.
Well, there's going to be one team, and this may make you happy, but Wisconsin I have my eye on because when you look at, and again, this is another one where you look at the resume, and I'm thinking, okay, this is a team that is won at Michigan. It's a team that is won at Illinois. They beat Michigan State. They beat Iowa. They've won at Purdue. And again, like how many of those am I saying they've won away from home? And I think sometimes we just forget how much that can matter when you get to the tournament. Like you have to be able to filter this into the teams that have a chance to go win away from home. Now, they also have lost at Oregon by 14. They also have games like that on the board. But I think when you look at Wisconsin, obviously, there's boom potential with them when you look at the way they shoot the ball after that 18 of 34 performance at Purdue, where they shot 53%. And what have they hit? At least 10 threes in their last, 5 games. And I mean, it's just a ridiculous number. I think they've hit at least 13, 7 of their last 8 or something like that. So I think with the way Wisconsin shoots the ball, they're the team I've been talking about a lot over the past week or two, just because I think you're looking at them probably in that 5 or 6 type seed range. And if you think about the potential path they would have, to get to an Elite 8, maybe a Final Four, something like that, they're probably the team I have my eye on the most. And another one, and this may be in a different way, like I want to see St. John's prove it, because I mean, we mentioned the Big East. UConn just lost the last number 1 seed. And, yes, by default, St. John's is the regular season champion. But I think that's the thing. There's a lot of people out there, I think, that are still kind of like, should I be buying this St. John's team? We saw what happened last year. We now see it where the Big East this year was just not a great conference. Let's call it what it is. And so are they going to be able to sustain that? Is that schedule going to wind up hurting them just given how many teams were kind of down this year in the Big East? So I think they're another team that I kind of have my own that's going to be in that same type of range, 5-6 seed. Yeah, I think, when you look at it, Greg, too, the land of the 5s and 6s right now, when it comes to these seeds, I mean, you're talking about teams like St. John's, Wisconsin, Louisville, BYU, Kentucky. Like, think about how many of these teams were in the top 10 to 12, like back in November. And now you're looking at a group of these teams that are going to be maybe 5, 6, even 7 seeds. And you just wonder, can any of these teams kind of find that magic that maybe they had early in the season, or maybe the magic we thought they'd have. It's hard to tell because we have a pretty big sample size now that they can't. But at the same time, there's plenty of intrigue, I think, in what teams like that can do here the rest of the way.
No question about it. We've got a lot of fun to be had. And hey, a team that is actually winning games right now from the great state of Wisconsin. You just love to see it. And Blake, we've got ourselves a lot of fun coming up here the next few weeks. The NCAA tournament bracket is going to be out in 7 days. We've got a great SEC tournament before then. You're locked in on it. Also, let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, I always appreciate it, Greg. Yeah, check us out there with the SEC stuff over at Southeastern 16 on YouTube and everything else college basketball. Follow me on Twitter /X at the Blake Lovell.
Absolutely. And Blake, he's doing such an amazing job looking at this wonderful game of college basketball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Blake for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some main shots. Here, lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. And it's always a pleasure to be able to get Blake Lovell aboard. He does such great work over at Southeastern 16. We're looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights and did so once again today. So big thanks to Blake for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Monday as we hit some bank shots.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter /X feed at gunit_81. We're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is pretty much tip time in terms of these conference tournaments. So the Coastal Conference tournament, that tips first among the major conference tournaments, and then Horizon Lake, SoCon, Sunbelt, Big Sky, WCC, and then the two conference tournaments at the bottom are the smaller conferences, the SWAC and the Southland. So that's the way that we're going today. If that sounded convoluted, I list the order of the games wherever you're getting this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, list goes on and on with all the time markers. So let's get things started. 8:31, 8:32. Monmouth and Campbell are going to be doing battle, and Monmouth is a 1 to a 1.5 point favorite. Total on this game, 151.5 to 152, and I'm going to be willing to lay with Monmouth. I did set them as a 4-point favorite with Monmouth. This has been a really good team in terms of just holding you down defensively. They're a top 40 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis and games played away from home. They're a top 15 team in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Overall, they've been about 97th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. That ascends into the top 65 when they're away from home. And Campbell, they have not been a good defense. They are 297th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and not even really that great on offense. They're outside the top 195 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. From 3-point range, they shoot 32.7%. That's 245th away from home. That goes to 30.3. That's well outside the top 275 in all of college basketball. Now, Monmouth, they don't make a lot of 2-point shots. They're about 300th in the country in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage, but they do shoot 36.2% away from home. That is a top 75 mark in terms of road 3-point shooting percentage in the country. And they've got Kavion McClain back. He was missing for the first 20-plus games of the season. Transfers in from Texas Southern. He's been able to give the team over 15 points per game. Jason Rivera-Torres, he's that do-it-all guy. 16 points, 8 boards, 3 assists. Gives you about a block per contest. And this has been a really good shot blocking team. They're a top 55 team with this regard. Doc Mortar, he only gives you like 4.5 points, 2.5 boards, but he gives you a little bit over block per game. Justin Ray, about 11 points per game. And then I like Jack Collins at the point guard spot. About 4.5 boards, 4.5 assists, steal and a half, 7.5 points per game. And for Campbell, DJ Turn It Up Smith has been able to do a nice job giving the team 19 points per contest. Shoots about 34% per three. Jeremiah Johnson, 14 points per contest as well. And the real forte of this team is grabbing second and third chances. You got Davideus Buka along Chris Fields, who combined for about 15.5 rebounds per game. Campbell, a top 100 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage. It's a Monmouth team that has been okay with regards to grabbing those second and third chances as well. They're ranking about 131st with regards to offensive rebound percentage. Overall, they're about 200th in terms of their rebound percentage. They give up second and third chances. Campbell about 185th, so both of these teams are sort of on the same wavelength there. And for Campbell, they're fast but not ridiculously fast, 126th in terms of total possessions per game. Monmouth outside the top 225, so do you think they get a slow down game? I like the under, so I total 147, and I'm going to lay with Monmouth, made them the 4-point favorite. 8:33, 8:34, game without numbers. Towson and Hofstra do battle. Hofstra had to survive an advance late yesterday. That's why you don't have numbers as I'm doing this overnight, but I've got my handicap I said Towson as an underdog of 6.5 points, 7+. I'm going to be willing to take the points with Towson, 6 or less, willing to lay with Hofstra, and then set a total of a 130.5. So 130 or less in on the over, 131 or higher the under. Towson is one of the slowest teams in all of college basketball in terms of total possessions per game. They are checking in 356th in the country. Hofstra's a pretty slow team as well, 305th in terms of total possessions per game. They just so happen to be the much, much more efficient offense because Towson has been awful with their three-point shooting. It's a Towson team that's shooting less than 30% from three, bottom 30 mark in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, Hofstra, they in games played away from home are a top 85 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. You've got Cruz Davis, who shoots 40+% from three, throws in their 20+ points per game, and Hofstra away from home entered into yesterday shooting 38.1% from three-point range. That is a top 15 mark in the country. Now, it is a Towson team that's been a top 100 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and to the credit of Towson, even though they don't shoot it well from three, they've been able to guard the three well. They allow opponents to shoot 31.3% from the outside. That's a top 50 mark in the country, but now they have to face off against a Hofstra team that has been really good on the inside. Hofstra is a top 20 team in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. The ancillary guys like Victory Otinu, who gives you 7 rebounds per game. Silas Sunday, 7-footer, 5 points, 6.5 rebounds. These guys have been rock solid. James Boogie Patterson gives you like 10 points, 5.5 boards, and then Preston Eadman about 15 points per contest. So all these guys really do a great job in terms of working in tandem. And then for Towson, you do have two main go-to guys in Tyler Teata along with Dylan Williamson. They entered into yesterday with a combined about 31 points per game. You've got Williamson shooting 34% from three-point range, and then you've got Jack Dumbia, who's been able to give you about 5.5 boards, 11 points per game. You've had a little bit of something out of Caleb Abia down low, be able to give you about 6 rebounds per game, and it is a Towson team that has been a top 35 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage, and the one concern that you might have with Hofstra is that they are going to give up some second and third chances. While they've actually been a top 100 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage as well, it is a Hofstra team that they do give up some second and third chances. Hofstra is about 172nd with regards to defensive rebound percentage. Towson is about 115th there, but I do think that in the end, Hofstra, with the way that they do such a great job down low, they are going to be able to hold down this Towson team, and Towson don't trust in their outside shooting, and Towson, if they get sent to the free throw line, they're shooting less than 70% at the free throw line outside the top tier there. So 6 or less, one lay at Hofstra. 7 or more, take the points with Towson. 130 or less, like the over. 131 or higher, the under. 835, 836. You've got Northern Kentucky, and they're going to be playing against Wright State. Wright State hopes to be the right side as they're a 1-point underdog, and total on this game, it is currently 160. I do like Wright State on the money line. I did set them as a favorite of 3.5 points. It's a Wright State group that has been really doing a solid job when they've been away from home. At home, this is a team that really gives it up from three-point range, and they themselves are lackadaisical with their three-point shooting. Away from home, they shoot 40.6% from three-point range compared to 30.2% at home. Wright State is 5th in the country in terms of their three-point shooting percentage away from home. Now, Northern Kentucky is executing on the inside. They're a top 50 team with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage away from home. They do shoot just 31.2% from three-point range at a roadside-score venue. That was going into yesterday, and they did go into inferno mode against UW Green Bay, but Northern Kentucky as well. They allow opponents to shoot 36.6% from three-point range. That's 329th in the country. Wright State, meanwhile, in a roadside-score venue, they're allowing teams to shoot about 31.6% from three. That is a top 85 mark in the country, and with Wright State, I really like the way that this team has been able to just, in tandem, be able to work with one another, as you've had the freshman and one Mr. Michael Cooper be able to step up, give the team 13.5 points. He shoots 36.5% from three. You've got your main facilitator in TJ Birch, 3.5 assists, 2.5 steals, 12 points per game. Now, Northern Kentucky really good in terms of generating turnovers in games played away from home. Top 35 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. But again, they get just absolutely tattooed if they don't come up with that turnover. And with this Wright State team, if you do have a little bit of trepidation, they're not necessarily the strongest team with regards to their interior defense outside the top 250 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. Wright State, more of a mid-tempo team, 178th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Northern Kentucky is 64th, but do have to wonder how much the back-to-back element is going to be playing here for Northern Kentucky, because it's not necessarily the deepest team. You've got a quartet of guys that give you 13-plus points per game that have been absolutely tremendous for this team, as Khalil Robinson throws in there about 14 points per contest, shoots 37% from three. Donovan Ode, 18.5 points, shoots 32% from the outside. Dan Gressinger, LJ Wells. These two guys have done a great job in terms of combining for 2 steals per game. Gressinger, 16 points on 37% three-point shooting. Wells, he's your main rebounder with about 7 rebounds per game. And then you've got Tate Dozier with about 5.5 rebounds per game. But outside of that, there's just not a lot here. So I do think that the tired legs get to you. I think that that's going to actually help you out to the under end. I do think that Wright State gets the job done. So I do like Wright State here on the money line. So my total 153.5. So I'm also in on that total under as well. 837, 838. It's Detroit, and they're going to be playing against points for Robert Morris. And Bobby Morris is a 4.5 point favorite. Total on this game, 147.5. And I like Robert Morris here. I did set them as a 6.5 point favorite. It's a Detroit team that just really doesn't put you under duress. They're about 330th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. That's big for a Robert Morris team that's about 295th in the country in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense. But Robert Morris, if they don't turn the ball over, they are a very efficient offensive team, as they're a top 15 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage, top 20 team with their 3-point shooting percentage being above 38%. And for Detroit, big time home and road splits with their 3-point shooting. They were much better when they were in a conference play, but still, they were shooting about 39.3% from 3-point range at home, less than 32.5% away from home. It's a Detroit team that down low has been 291st with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. Robert Morris is doing a much better job at about 127th, and Robert Morris should be able to absolutely roll down low. Even though Detroit is a top 75 team with regards to their offensive rebound percentage, you really don't have anyone outside of Legend Geeter who's been able to give you over 5.2 rebounds per game, 8.2 points, 6.2 boards, and then you've been able to get right around about 5 rebounds out of Ryan Columby, who throws in there only about 4 points per game. Now, Orlando Lovejoy doesn't pop it from 3, but it does give the team 15 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists, really that do-it-all sort of point guard for the team. And then TJ Nedu, he's your go-to 3-point shooter at 46.5%, throws in there 13.5 points per game. Tyler Spratt, up to about 10 points per contest as well, but with having Nicholls, Shadakoulis, along to shot good down low, Robert Morris has a big edge here. These guys have been able to combine for about 26.5 points per game, good 15 points by himself, 8.5 boards, shoots 59% from 3. And then Ryan Prather has shot 37.5% from 3 overall for the season. In conference play, that went up above 38% from the outside, 15.5 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists per game. Alberto Vargas has done a nice job, giving the team about 4 assists per contest. And it's a Robert Morris team that's been pretty good with their percentages. Top 200 team with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. They're not allowing a ton of second and third chances, really not going to put you under duress in terms of generating turnovers. So I think that that's going to help out a little bit with the scoring. Robert Morris, not necessarily fast, 169th in terms of total possessions per game. Detroit, a little bit more brisk, 118th. So it is a circumstance where I said Robert Morris is a 6.5 point favorite. Would like to 6 with them. Maybe my total 146.5. So 147 plus, that does become my buy point on the under. 839, 840. It's Furman and East Tennessee State for the SoCon title. Currently no numbers up on this game, but I've got my handicap as I made Furman the underdog here of 3 points. I'm willing to take 3.5 plus here with Furman. 2.5 or less, willing to lay with East Tennessee State, and then set a total of 137. So 136.5 or less, and on the over 137 or and a half or higher, the under. You've got a Furman team that does a really good job inside. As Furman, in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage, overall it's 15th in the country. You look at them in a roadside-core venue, that does go up to Mambo number 5 in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, for East Tennessee State, they're a really good team down low as well, 35th in the country with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. And for East Tennessee State, they're just a better team on the turnover front, as that has really been a killer for this Furman team. For ETSU, they're a top 75 team in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. Furman is 256th, and on the defensive side of things, you do have an ECSU team that has been able to do a great job in terms of generating turnovers. Furman is not. Furman, bottom 25 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. East Tennessee, they're 80th in the country now. ETSU was life and death yesterday, so you do have to wonder if that's going to take a little bit of the wind out of their sails for this game, but you still have a trio of guys that are giving you between 14 to 14.5 points per game. Cam Morris, Blake Barkley, and Brian Taylor. And with all 3 of these guys, they've been able to do a solid job on the glass. Barkley and Morris combined for 11 rebounds per game. You get 4 boards out of Taylor. He throws in there as well 2.5 assists per contest. You've been able to get some good 3-point shooting as well out of Mekhi Johnson, who's been able to shoot 40% from 3. Did miss a pair of free throws that would have gotten you the cover yesterday against Western Carolina. But hey, you know what? They've been able to do a rock solid job there. And it is an ETSU team that's pretty solid in terms of guarding the 3-point line. Top 125 team with that regard. They are outside the top 175 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. So Furman should be able to find some looks there. You've got Charles Johnson give you about 10 points, 9 boards per contest. Cooper Bowser throws in there 13.5 points, 6 boards, and Alex Wilkins 17.5 points per game. I like what he's able to bring to the table, but only shoots about 30% from 3. And Furman as a whole, they've been outside the top 275 with regards to their 3-point shooting percentage, hovering right around about 32%. Pretty good in terms of being able to guard down low. They've been a top 125 team with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, top 150 team in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Overall, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, ETSU is 88th in the country. Furman, they're more around about 161st just because they don't generate those turnovers and they give up a few second and third chances on the glass. And Furman looking to play slow, 263rd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. ETSU just a hair slower, hovering right around about 283rd. So circumstance where I did set a little bit of a lower total, 136.5 or less, and on the over 137.5 or higher, the under end with Furman won't take 3.5 plus with them, 2.5 or less willing to lay with ETSU. 841, 842. This is the Sun Belt title game. On the opener, the men of Troy are a 5.5 point favorite. Total on this game, it is 150. 153.5. I'm going to be willing to go with the over. I did set my total at 154.5. Now, I recognize that Georgia Southern, I believe that this is game number 6 in 6 days, with it just absolutely insane, to say the least, but the team has been absolutely gunning it. 27th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Troy's an up-tempo team as well. 114th in terms of total possessions per game, albeit you have that triple overtime game against USC and the double overtime game against San Diego State that adds a few possessions to it, but they're certainly not a team that is sitting on their hands. You've got a Troy team that I do think is going to be able to win the battle down low, and I did set this line at 6.5. I'm going to be willing to lay it because Thomas Dowd, I think, takes over this game. 14.5 points, 10 rebounds per game. It's a Troy team that's been able to do a very good job in terms of grabbing second and third chances, and Georgia Southern, one of their main kryptonites is the defensive glass. They entered into the day on Sunday, having allowed opponents to grab 32% of their misses as an offensive rebound. That is 317th in terms of defensive rebound percentage. Troy, meanwhile, they are 258th. They're going to give up a few second and third chances as well, but they're the team that does by far the better job in terms of being able to grab those second and third chances. And in a game like this, where your legs might be going after playing a bunch of days, that's rough for Georgia Southern. 253rd in the country is Georgia Southern in offensive rebound percentage. Troy, meanwhile, they find themselves 59th. They grab about 32.7% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. Victor Valdez has been able to give you 15 points per game. The Campbell brothers, Cooper and Kobe Campbell, they combine and shoot about 39.5% from three, and between the two of them, about 80% of the free throw line. Cooper, 13 points, 4.3 assists per game, and then Kobe throws in there a steal, 9 points per contest. With Georgia Southern, you have to absolutely love what you've been able to get out of Spud Webb. He had 31 points yesterday, and guy has been really putting the team on his back. He and Tyron Moore have been able to give you more with combined about 32 points per contest. Moore is your main three-point shooter at about 39% from the outside. Moore and Webb combined for about 5 assists per contest and a little bit over 3 steals per game, and that's really been the forte of Georgia Southern, winning the turnover battle. They're a top 65 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, top 85 team in terms of generating them on defense, and Troy has found themselves just a hair outside the top 100 in terms of generating turnovers. So I do think that the clean possessions are going to be able to help you out to the over, and I do think that you get some late fouls, especially Georgia Southern being a top 30 team in terms of free throw attempts allowed on a per game basis as well. So like the over, I did set my total at a 154.5, and with Troy, I'm going to be willing to lay up to 6 with them. 843, 844 on the card. You've got Montana, and they're going to be playing against Northern Colorado. This is out there in Boise, Idaho, with Northern Colorado. They are a 4.5 point favorite total on this game, 151.5 to 152.5. Did set a total of a 150.5. I like the under. Now, Northern Colorado is well outside the top 3 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. That said, this is a Montana team that's just so sloppy with the ball. Montana is 342nd in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. Montana's really been able to grip it and rip it from 3-point range, and overall, in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, they're still a top 215 team in the country, but that's really off-putting. Montana does shoot 37.1% from 3-point range away from home. That is a top 40 mark in the country. Meanwhile, Northern Colorado, they shoot 36.4% from 3-point range away from home. They're in the top 55 themselves. And Northern Colorado always does a good job in terms of not allowing second and third chances, albeit this is a Montana team that they're not grabbing a lot of second and third chances themselves. And Montana will give up a few offensive rebounds as well. In terms of defensive rebound percentage, they're allowing teams to grab about 28% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. Meanwhile, for Northern Colorado, 5th in the country. Teams are grabbing only 22% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, and when it comes to this Montana group, it's all about money. Money Williams has been able to do a nice job, give you about 19.5 points, 4 boards, 5 assists, shoots about 34% from 3. Tyler Thompson has been able to shoot 40% from the outside, and if this team goes to the free throw line, they are shooting about 76.8% the charity stripe. That is a top 45 mark in the country. They're also a top 40 team with their 2-point shooting percentage, but Northern Colorado has been able to do a nice job in terms of being able to execute on the inside. Quinn Denker has been a nice point guard for the team, 5 boards, 7 assists, 19 points per game, shoots about 35% from 3. Zach Block shoots 43% from the outside. Brock Wisney has been able to give you 16 points, 6.5 boards. So I like what these guys all bring to the table with Northern Colorado. I do think that they're going to be able to do a very rock solid job in terms of guarding the arc as well. They're allowing teams to shoot, if you include their non-D1 games, 29.9% from 3-point range. That is a top 40 mark in the country, and I do think that that keeps you under, and that allows Northern Colorado to get the job done. So Northern Colorado is a 4.5 point favorite, so I'm going to be willing to lay at 3.5 with them, and I do like the under, so my total at a 150.5. 845, 846. Weber State and Eastern Washington do battle, and Eastern Washington is a 2.5 to a 3.5 point favorite. 154.5 to 155.5 is the total, and made a total of 156.5. I do like the over. Eastern Washington is outside the top 315 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis in games played away from home. And Eastern Washington overall is 162nd in terms of total possessions per game, goes into the top 140 away from home. Weber State is a pretty up-tempo team, 90th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and Weber State is solid in terms of giving themselves second and third chances. Top 125 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage. They've also been good in terms of not allowing second and third chances, 55th in terms of defensive rebound percentage. And Eastern Washington is about 199th with regards to percentage of opponents' missed shots that do result in an offensive rebound. With Weber State, I like what you've been able to get out of Jami Vartinen, who gives you about 13 points, shoots 43% from three, and in a pressure spot for Weber State, each out of your top three scorers do shoot above 78% in the free throw line. It would be 4 if Jace Whiting were healthy, but that's been an issue that has been plaguing this team a little bit. But Edwin Suarez Jr. down low is able to give you about 6 boards per contest. Malik Goma, 7 rebounds, they combine for about 17.5 points per game. Now, it's a Weber State team that gives it up on the inside, outside the top 3 with regards to opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, but they've also been a top 85 team in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage as well. And Eastern Washington is a team that gets line basic from 3 away from home. In games played away from home, they allow teams to shoot over 37% from 3. That goes below 31% at home. Just have not been the same team with their defense away from home. Now, they are a pretty solid 3-point shooting team themselves, shooting 36.3% from the outside. And Eastern Washington overall, 100th in the country in terms of points per possession, with Isaiah Moses leading the way, parting the sea for 18 points, 4 assists, 93.5% free throw shooter, 42.5% from 3-point range. JoJo Anderson has been able to shoot 37.5% for 3, 7.5 points per contest. And then Alden Hamilton and Kyrie Huey, they combine for about 11 rebounds and 26 points per contest. But it is an Eastern Washington team that's sloppy with the ball outside the top 225 in terms of ball security. And do think that Weber State, with their edge on the glass, they do find a way to get the job done. So made Weber State actually a 4.5 point favorite. I'd like them here on the money line, and I'm in on the 156 or less to the over 847, 848. Oregon State is going to be playing against Gonzaga, and Gonzaga on the opener, I'm right now seeing them as a favorite of about 19.5 points total on this game. You're going to be getting that anywhere between 145.5 to 146, and I'm willing to lay with Gonzaga. I did set them as a 21-point favorite. I recognize that this team has not been the same without Brayden Huff. This is pretty much a home game, though, for Gonzaga. They show out and they show up when they're out here in lovely Las Vegas, and for Gonzaga, they've got by far the best player in this game in Graham Ike, 19.5 points, 8.3 boards, shoots in the mid-30s from 3-point range. You've got an Oregon State team that's going to be looking to play relatively slow in terms of total possessions per game, 277th in all of college basketball. Meanwhile, it's a Gonzaga group that they're 73rd in the country. They've been slowing down a little bit more recently, but Gonzaga is still an absolute menace on the glass. In games played away from home, they're grabbing 35.7% of their business as an offensive rebound. That's a top 15 mark in the country, and Oregon State is not doing a great job on the glass right now. They are 294th in terms of defensive rebound percentage. In games played away from home, teams grab 34.6% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, and your lone guy that gives you over 5 rebounds per game is Joan Munch, who gives you about 8.5 points, 5 rebounds per game. And I will say, I like Josiah Lake and his versatility. 13.1 points, 4.1 boards, 4.1 assists, steal and a half per contest, shoots 39% from 3-point range. But when you're relying upon guys like Yak for production, that's not a place where you want to be. Isaiah C is able to give you 10 points per game. And for Gonzaga, they've been a very dominant defense this year. If you look at them in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, this unit is currently in the top 10 in all of college basketball. As a matter of fact, they are number 2 in the country. Obviously, the offense isn't quite where it has been. They're a country average team with their 3-point shooting. Adam Miller has been giving you only about 8 to 9 points per contest, but even with that, they are still 10th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. In games played away from home, that goes up to either 7th or 8th, depending upon the day that you look. And along with Graham Ike, you've had Mario Saint-Cyprien be able to give you a little bit from the outside, 8.5 points. He shoots 44% from 3. Tying Grant Foster, while he doesn't pop it from 3, 11 points, a block, a steal, 5 rebounds, just does a little bit of everything. I think that they get the job done against an Oregon State team that, away from home, they just haven't been a great 3-point shooting team. So, semi-total here at a 145. I'm going to be willing to lay with Gonzaga again at a 145.5 or higher. That's my buy point on the under. And then we wrap things up with 849, 850 in terms of the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit the extra game. Santa Clara, they're going to be playing against St. Mary's. This is a game without numbers because this game wrapped up after 10 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, but I've got my handicap with St. Mary's, made them a 4.5 point favorite, so one will lay up to 4 with them, 5 or more, take the points with Santa Clara. Made my total to where at 146 or less. I'm in on the over, 147 or higher, the under, and with Santa Clara, this team has been able to do a really good job in terms of giving themselves second and third chances. Even though they've been a relatively pedestrian team with their 3-point shooting, they entered into yesterday 24th in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Did a good job putting up quite a few points against Pacific as well, and a lot of that is because they grabbed 35% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is 21st in all of college basketball. St. Mary's is a group that does even better, though. They are 10th in the country. They grab 36.5% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound, and they are by far the stronger team in terms of not allowing second and third chances. With the St. Mary's group, right now they're allowing opponents to only grab about 21% of their misses as an offensive offensive rebound. That is third in all of college basketball. Santa Clara is 253rd. Now, Santa Clara, pretty good in terms of generating turnovers, and St. Mary's is not going to put you under duress. St. Mary's outside the top 275 in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Santa Clara is a top 50 team, but you do have Paulius Marsoukas, 8.5 points. He shoots in the mid-30s from 3, 7.5 rebounds per game. Andrew McKeever is able to give you 9 boards. You've had Joshua Dent step up in a big way, doling out the ball, 5.6 assists, 13.5 points per game. For St. Mary's team, that has been a top 60 team with regards to points scored on a per possession basis. They're still playing that very slow and controlled pace, while Santa Clara, they're a little bit up-tempo, but not extreme. 106th in terms of total possessions per game for Santa Clara. With St. Mary's, they're more around about 301st, but you do have Mikey Lewis, who does a nice job being able to shoot about 37.5% from three-point range. And here's what gives you some security with this St. Mary's team. They shoot 80.3% at the free throw line. That is a top 3 mark in all of college basketball. We'll say for St. Mary's, their three-point shooting takes a dive away from home. 42.7% at home, 33.7% away from home. And Jake Amsinger has been able to do a really good job for the Santa Clara team in terms of just being able to give you production down low. Guy does a little bit of everything. Not a big scorer with about 6.5 points per game, but 5.6 boards, trio of assists. He'll throw in there a steal. He'll give you a block or two. So I like his game. Christian Hammond, 16 points per game, shoots 39.5% for 3. Alan Graves, 41% three-point shooter. Another just sort of do-it-all shaker. A block, 2 steals, 11.5 points, 6.5 rebounds. Love those guys, but that's it for Santa Clara. They are a team that is about 150th in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. They are giving up those second and third chances, and they're outside the top 240 with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage as well, while their own two-point shooting percentage in the top 50. So 146 or less and on the over, 147 or higher the under with St. Mary's. We'll only have to 4 with them. 5 or more taking the points with Santa Clara, and now we hit the extra games.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the bonus.
306-539, 306-540. You've got Alcorn State, and they are going to be playing against Alabama State for the SWAC tournament out there in Georgia. You've got Alabama State as a favorite here of 6.5 points. It's on this game between 142.5 to 143.5, and I did set a total of 143.5. So at the 142.5, I do like the over. Alcorn State hovering right around about 200th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Meanwhile, you do have an Alabama State team that has been playing quite a tempo this year in terms of total possessions per game. Alabama State not quite as fast as the Crimson Tide, but still 69th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Alcorn State more around about 141st. And for Alcorn State, this has actually been a solid team in terms of their three-point shooting away from home, and really both of these teams have been better from three-point away from home rather than at home. Alcorn State shoots 25.6% from three-point at home, 36.7% in a road or neutral court environment. Alabama State, they've been shooting from three-point right around about 34% away from home, 27.6% at home. So I find that to be very intriguing. And both of these teams relatively solid in terms of generating turnovers. Alabama State, they're 59th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. Alcorn State, they're right around about 73rd. But I did have to set this line at 5.5. So at 6+, that is my buy point on Alcorn State. Alabama State does certainly have more of the, shall we say, headline guys, as you got as John Anderson along with Micah Simpson. These two guys have been able to combine for about 28 points and 6.8 assists per contest, with having Simpson shooting 35.5% for 3, and both shoot above 76% at the free throw line. Meanwhile, you've had Jacarius Sandback be able to give you a pair of blocks, 5.5 rebounds per game, and that's something that Alcorn State is going to have a tough time with. They are absolutely awful on the glass. That said, this is an Alabama State team that they've got their hiccups as well. This is a team that only shoots as a whole 69.5% at the free throw line. They've been just rough in terms of taking care of the ball outside the top 3 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. Alcorn State, they're right there in that same vein, and Alcorn State will give it up on the inside. Bottom 5 team in the country with regards to opponents' two-point shooting percentage, but you do have Tyson McDaniels, who's been able to step up, give you about 12.6 boards per game. You have Shane Lancaster, who's been able to shoot 45% for 3, 11.5 points. You get a pair of steals out of Jameel Morris, and it does feel like Alcorn State's defense has been getting better and better as the season has went along. Went third in the SWAC in terms of guarding the three-point line, in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. Their rebounding wasn't as bad, so I do think that for Alcorn State, they're going to hold in here against an Alabama State team that just feels like they've gotten worse as the season was went along. So 143 or less and on the overhand. We'll take 6+ here with Alcorn State. 306-541, 306-542. You've got Grambling, and they're going to be playing against Mississippi Valley State. Mississippi Valley State, 12.5 point underdogs. Total on this game, 134.5 to 135.5. Made a total of a 136.5. So I'm going to be liking the over, as you've got a Grambling team that has been really generating a lot of turnovers. Top 20 team in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis away from them. Mississippi Valley State has honestly generated a few. They're 149th with this regard, but if you take a look at them in a road/shoot score environment, it just falls completely off the map. They go outside the top 200 with that regard. Now Grambling, a bottom 10 team in the country in terms of taking care of the ball at home, but Mississippi Valley State has not scored all season long. They are 364th out of 365 teams in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Now Grambling's 332nd, but for Grambling, what's going to help them out is that Mississippi Valley State is going to put you at the free throw line, and they are third in terms of most free throw attempts allowed per opponent's field goal attempt. Mississippi Valley State is, and for Grambling, their forte is shooting at the free throw line. They shoot about 73.5% of the charity stripe, top 175 mark. That offsets the fact that they're outside the top 250 in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage, outside the top 300 with regards to their 3-point shooting percentage, as you've had Antonio Munoz be able to step up for the team, give you about 12.5 points per game, but he's been dealing with a little bit of injury down the stretch. Should be good to go in this game, though. And then you've had Roderick Coffey do a nice job grinding for this team, 11 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, shoots about 36% from 3. Ricky Ballard has been a 36% 3-point shooter, and I will say this for Mississippi Valley State. They've got 2 guys on the roster that can put the team on their back. Michael James is supplying 21.5 points, 3.5 boards if he gets to the free throw line, shoots 91% when he's there, shoots 33% from 3. Problem is the team as a whole shoots 29.9% from 3. That is a bottom 15 mark in the country. They're also in the bottom 10 with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. They turn the ball over 15.3 times per game, so lots of turnovers to be had for Grambling. And then you do have Daniel Mayfield down low, give you about 6.5 boards, 13.5 points per game. You only really have one other guy on the roster that's been able to give you over 4.2 rebounds per game that's healthy, because they had Lamont Sams stepping up down low, but he's been dealing with ailment. You've got Xavier Barnett with about 5 points, 4 boards, and does chip in there 2.7 assists per game as well. But also for Mississippi Valley State, outside the top 310 with regards to opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. I think that allows Grambling to be able to get the job done here, and it is a Grambling team that has been relatively mid-tempo, 161st in terms of total possessions per game. Mississippi Valley State, they look to push some tempo at 111th in terms of total possessions per game, so set a total of 136.5, like the over, and I'm willing to lay up to 14 here with Grambling. 306.543, 306.544. New Orleans and Texas A&M Corpus Christi do battle out there in the Southland tournament. This game is without numbers, as for New Orleans, they had to survive and advance to be able to get into this game, but I've got my handicap for New Orleans. I set them as a 3.5 point underdog. Willing to take 4+ with New Orleans, 3 or less willing to lay with Corpus Christi. Made a total of 147.5, so 147 or less, like the over, 148 or higher, the under. It's a New Orleans team that's looking to play with some tempo, 81st in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Texas A&M Corpus Christi is not as slow as they have been the last few years. Not necessarily a team that's going to be going out there and gunning it, though, by any stretch of the imagination. They're about 251st in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and for Corpus Christi, this team is an absolute maestro in terms of generating turnovers. In terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis, they are 37th in all of college basketball, and New Orleans is just flat out losing the turnover battle. They are 327th in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. On defense, on offense, they're outside the top 340 in terms of ball security, and not like New Orleans lights it up from 3. They shoot about 32% from the outside, 285th in the country, while Corpus Christi, they're shooting more like 33.8% from 3-point range. For Corpus Christi, you've had a few guys be able to step up, and I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job down low, because you've got Sheldon Williams, who's been able to give this team 6.8 boards, 12 points per game, and then Nicholas Chambonneau has been shipping in there about 12 points. He shoots 42% from 3-point range. You've got someone like a D.A. Houston who dealt with injury, but he should be good to go in this game. 8 points, 3 assists per game. Now, if you have some trepidation with Corpus Christi, they do shoot 67.8% at the free throw line, and they are a top 30 team in terms of fouls committed on a per possession basis, and the forte of New Orleans is getting to the free throw line. They've been a top 25 team in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession basis. They shoot 74.7% at the free throw line, and they commit a lot of fouls as well. So New Orleans outside the top 135 in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, even though they're a top 150 team in terms of opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage. Have Colton Benson, who's been able to give you 16 points per game, shoots 36% for 3. MJ Thomas, 10.5 points, 7.5 boards per contest, and then Churchill Abus has been able to give you a pair of blocks per contest as well. But it is a New Orleans team that gives up just way too many second and third chances. In terms of defensive rebound percentage, they are well outside the top 320 in all of college basketball. We'll say they're going to give themselves a few second and third chances, and Corpus Christi, they're about 201st in the country with regards to their offensive rebound percentage. New Orleans is 42nd, but Corpus Christi should be able to get some nice second and third chances and persevere here with winning the turnover battle. One to lay up to 3 with Corpus Christi, 4 more, take the points with New Orleans, and then 147 or less, and on the over 148 or higher, the under end. This is the last game on the board, 306.545, 306.546. You've got UT Rio Grande Valley, and they're facing off against Nicholls right now. That opener that I'm seeing is Nicholls being an underdog of 8.5 points, and throughout this game, you're going to be getting at a 146.5, and I'm willing to take anything of 8+ here with Nicholls. I did set them as an underdog of 7.5 points. It's a Nicholls team that has been good at generating turnovers. They're a top 25 team in the country in terms of turnovers generated on a per possession basis. I will say they do give up a lot of open shots. They're outside the top 275 in terms of opponents' 2-point and 3-point shooting percentage, while Nicholls, they themselves, neither here nor there with their 3-point shooting. They've been about 34.4% away from home, and then you've got a UT Rio Grande Valley team that has been absolutely ridiculous with regards to home and road splits. Like, it's absolutely obscene. Right now for UT Rio Grande Valley, they shoot 31.3% from 3-point range at home, 40.8% away from home. They're fourth in the country in terms of road 3-point shooting percentage. Again, I think that tapers off just a little bit, and if you look at Grand Valley overall for the season in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, they've been a solid offense, 165th in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, but they are scoring about 8.9 points more per 100 possessions away from home rather than at home. You look at them in a roadside shoot score venue, they've actually been a top 40 offense in terms of points per possession, and for Grand Valley, it's a little bit more of a wholes greater than some of its parts approach with them, as you've had Corey Cotton do a nice job, give you about 13.5 points, 5 boards per contest, and then Philip Brankovic, Marvin McGee, Jalen Washington, they give between 9.9 and 12.8 points per game. Brankovic and McGee combined for about 9.5 rebounds per game between the two of them, and McGee does shoot 42.5% from 3-point range, and to the Grand Valley, they're not allowing a lot of open looks. They've been a top 50 team with regards to opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, top 100 team in terms of 2-point shooting percentage. Meanwhile, you've got a Nicholls group that certainly they are going to be allowing quite a bit on the inside. They are outside the top 250 with regards to rebound percentage, but Jalik Junkley, Jalen Surreals, these guys combine for 25 points per game. They combine to shoot about 35% per three. Nicholls just dreadful at the free throw line, 66.2%. That said, Sincere Malone, I like his versatility. 11.5 points, 4.5 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals per contest. You've had Z Harmoda be able to come on strong, be able to give you about 10 points per contest. He shoots about 39% from 3-point range. With the way that Nicholls has a little bit of more of a pressure system, they do a nice job locking down there. They're also just really bad with regards to their interior defense, a little bit better with regards to guarding the 3-point line. I do think that keeps them lively. It is a Grand Valley team that they themselves shoot 75.9% free throw line, but they are a bottom 30 team in terms of free throws attempted on a per possession basis and have been just there outside the top 200 with regards to turnovers on a per possession basis. So made a total of 141.5. I like the under, and I'm willing to take A+ here with Nicholls, and that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, out by the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to our guy Blake Lovell over at Southeastern 16 for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_D1. Keep in mind, Lars CM, naming does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review. I'm coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every game every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.